Hi crafty folks, Amy here with Amy's Wares, and I'm going to make a couple Christmas shakers that are lower profile and easier to ship. I have these dies from Creative Expressions. I don't know if they're still available, but if they are, I will link them below with all the other products that are still available. And I have some dies. These are diagonal stitched layered card toppers from LDRS. And here are a couple photos of the finished card. You'll see these are pretty low profile compared to other shakers I've made in the past. The only bulk to them is just one layer of foam, and you'll see how I construct this design. Now initially I was thinking I was going to use that middle die, but it wasn't big enough to go around the outside of these circle die cuts. So I'm having to finagle these a little bit because I already cut the panels down to A2 size. So I had to use some mint tape to kind of give that cool stitched edge. But I'm going to line up the inner portions of these dies. As you can see, the outer circles are also available. That's if you want to cut the entire shebang out. But I really just want to cut out from this panel. So it's going to have this awesome detail, but it's still going to be contained within the panels. You can see I've die cut those and set those off to the side. But the next step of the shaker is actually going to be the window plastic. So this is embossable window plastic, but I'm not actually going to emboss it in this case. I'm just kind of poking out the extra little fiddly bits and using some score tape just around the outer perimeter of the open circle die cut. And I'm just going to cut this cellophane, or plastic rather, down to size. It's just a little bit smaller than the width of this A2 size panel. But I have two sheets here that I'm having to cut down just so I can line it up perfectly behind this opening, and that's going to contain my little shaker bits. So I basically just pull back the score tape and put those down, and that's going to complete this step of the process when I'm done struggling with this score tape. Sometimes it comes off like a dream, other times it wants to fight with me, and here it's fighting with me. So you don't have to be too concise here. You just basically go around the opening enough to make sure that the plastic stays down. Now here is my first mistake. You guys know I like to leave these in. I'm sitting there thinking like, oh, all these parts of the die cut, all these details need to be adhered as well to the plastic. So I'm thinking liquid glue, which I don't know what I was thinking because there's an oozage attack. It just never fails. I don't know why. Look at this. I push it down and there's so much glue oozing out. Not a fan. So here I think about it, and then I'm like, why don't I use my artist tack? Because I really just need it to have enough adhesive behind all those little details and all the parts of the die cutting so that it sticks down to the plastic. So here I remove the backer on this score tape. However, as I'm thinking about it, next time I'd probably just leave that on. And then I'm laying down a piece of this artist tack micro dots just to lay down adhesive neatly without the oozage all over the back of the detail parts of this die cut. So now I put down the plastic window here behind it, and you can see no mess, no oozage. So there's a side-by-side comparison. I guess you can't really see too well in the video, but there was so much glue that oozed out that I ended up having to use my little picker tool to kind of clean up the mess. Now here's my solution to line up the hole perfectly on this foam. Now this is adhesive back foam, and what you can see I'm doing here, I'm putting the tape sticky side up and then lining the die above, right in line with the opening, and then I stick my foam down on it, and then it perfectly places that outer circle die cut where I need it to be so it will line up perfectly on the panel. Now these pieces of foam I cut down just slightly smaller than the size of the panel. So the white panel is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, which is a full card front. And then this, I actually cut down maybe, I don't know, like an 1/8 smaller around every side. And the reason I did that is because when you run that through your die cutting machine, it is going to squish that foam a little bit and make it stick out farther. So you could actually maybe even go like a 1/4 inch smaller on each side, just to make sure that that red doesn't poke out outside of your front panel. Now here I'm just doing some very simple ink blending right on the card base itself. Again, that's A2 size. That's Neenah Classic Crest Solar White, 110 pound. and I have this cozy knit stencil from a Colorful Life Designs. I wanted to add just a little bit of fun interest behind the opening, and you can see it doesn't have to be neat. I'm a hot mess. I got ink all over the place, but it doesn't matter because it's going to be covered by that front panel. Now here I'm removing the backer on this foam, just on the lower part, and then lining it up, and you can see with it squished down, even though I cut it down smaller, it still almost completely covers the front of the actual card panel. So like I said, cut at least 1/8 off each side, if not 1/4 inch, and then you'll make sure it doesn't kind of stick out the side of your card. Now these are really cool sparkle blends from a company called Doodles Paper Playground. It's yet another small woman-owned business that I like to support. She has these amazing sparkle blends, which are obviously great for embellies on the front of your card, but in this case we're going to use them as shaker bits. So I'm just kind of picking through. I have a handful of Christmas themed ones. So I have this Minter is coming, and then I think Holly Berries. I will link these as well below, but I'm going to supplement them just to really stretch them with some other kind of clear iridescent sequins that I have in my stash. I'm using some mint tape just to hold this down because I am going to fill up this opening. Now you can see it's not very deep. So if you were to double up your foam tape and make a shaker kind of the more traditional way, it's going to sit up a lot higher and it's going to probably be harder to ship. But as you can see, this well is not that deep. It's only as thick as this one layer of craft foam. So this is how I'm able to make it lower profile. I'm able to get nice even dimension all the way to support the front of the panel, and it looks pretty from the side. I don't know, I just get... Shakers aren't my favorite because I don't like being able to see where the foam tape ends and begins on the side of the card. I started making them like this because for one, it's cool with a little pop of color, and for two, it's nice and even and it looks neat on the side. And then when I did it this way, I realized, oh, those shaker bits can actually still move around and it's not super bulky and thick. So this is my solution to making a shaker that's easier to ship. Now here I'm coming again with the score tape around. Now one mistake I would kind of change here, you can see I'm kind of going around the circle, but I don't do the best job kind of pushing down the adhesive. Now there is a well and the shaker bits can't really get out from it because that foam is all the way around it, but just make sure when you put this down on your card base with the foam that you really kind of run your finger along the outside of that open circle just to make sure the little shaker bits can't get kind of wedged in there. So I did a better job on this first card, not as much on the second, so they do get a little bit stuck. They can still move around fine, but just remember that step to just kind of really adhere it down well around the circle just so it can't kind of get wedged in there. But again, it's not a deal breaker. They still move around okay. And then here, I'm just kind of putting a little smattering of these extra blingage all on the front of the card with some liquid glue and my jewel picker. So like I said, this is how I make lower profile, easier to ship sort of shakers. But if you want more room for your shaker bits to move around, you can absolutely, you could double up the foam sheets like this, or you could go the kind of more traditional route with foam tape and kind of really pop it up that way. So like I said, I just want to keep it kind of low profile. I don't want it to be too thick and bulky. And then you also obviously have the option of hand delivering these if you have concerns about shipping it. So here I'm just going through the same process again. I have it sped up, but I have this Minter is coming, and it has all these cute little mint looking I don't know, little clay bits and things like that. So fun. So I'm just putting that in this opening just like the last one. Some of them are kind of stuck together, and then I'm going to supplement it again, same thing with some of these iridescent bits, just so I can really stretch these little packs of these shaker bits. Now they do last surprisingly a long time, but I'm kind of hoarding them a little bit and spreading the love, right? So I'm still getting the benefit of using these gorgeous sparkle blends, but I'm able to supplement them with some maybe less special little blingage in my stash. So here I'm fighting with the score tape again. It's not my friend today. It's really not wanting to cooperate, but once I get all that backer off, I'm going to do the same thing and just really press it down onto this card base. And you can see here, I don't kind of go around the circle quite as well as the other one, and then they do kind of want to get lodged a little bit, but they do still shake around. It's totally fine when all's said and done. And I did end up throwing some sentiment strips on the inside of the card just to kind of finish the design, but I didn't feel like it needed a sentiment on the front just because the die cutting already has a word. And you can see here it's very low profile. You get that nice red showing on the outside perimeter of the card, but it's not super bulky. It's not super heavy, and it still should be pretty easy to ship. So this is my solution to making a lower profile shaker card. I hope you found this helpful. If you did, please hit the thumbs up. It really does help me out. And if you're interested in any of the products, I will link those below. So just expand the video description box and scroll down, and I'll catch you next time. Thanks. Bye.